today,
Okay.
just how he's working with us and he's very happy, blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
But he just asked for more time to review what I sent him, so.
That's for both of them.
Yeah, so what I'm going to propose to you is I'm going to do a complete revision and include one ordinance that includes changes to both Chapter 12 and 13, which are fire and first aid. And Chapter 12 is going to be pretty much what we're talking about now. I think George is going to be okay with it or some version of that. And for first aid, eventually we'll just add in a waiver provision. And then their background check is going to be more restrictive than the fire department's is because that's how it currently reads, that any criminal history bars you.
Are you going to mention that?
Yeah, I mean, I could say that. I don't know if we want to say it now or when we eventually get there. It's up, whatever you guys want to do.
We are
Well,
down here, you can come down.
and tell them the interesting part about that ordinance.
Oh, yeah. Well, I talked to Jamie and Chris
Oh,
about it.
Dan does, I don't know if Dan knows.
The ordinance that Deb has this problem with, well, she
Yeah.
made it. Did you read the minutes?
Yeah, I didn't get to read the minutes,
I think I might need help with this.
I highlighted them.
With the camera.
He sent me the waiver that they said, but I'm sorry, it takes 60 days.
Hmm.
We have to amend it.
I'm Sherry. And I apologize, I just sent you the rest
5
of
minutes,
the
as I said,
body
how
work.
close
You
are
need
we?
it down in front of you?
No, I'm
The
gonna
water
do it by
bottle.
title,
Okay.
okay?
Oh, you got yours up there. Oh, look at you, Bo, beat you.
One of you zoom in,
I suppose we should, but I wouldn't.
okay?
Well, now I'm feeling like
No
a,
problem, bye.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Gosh, I hope I don't have it.
What's the borough? What's the borough?
I'll have to tell them, don't text me, you have to text me during the meetings.
You need your bag?
And what's the password? 397?
Yes.
But it's spelled wrong.
E-L.
Yeah.
What is that, Colleen? What did I do?
See, for me, they changed it.
I think that's just because no one has signed on. I have a bunch of people in. Maybe because I don't have any, cameras on. That must be why. This is in the camera on.
Are we okay with fireworks for a wedding?
Well, I asked about that, and if it's short enough, and it's not going into the bay, which is a good thing.
Right.
We really want to open that.
Yeah, I know, but we have done it there before, that's what I was like, but now, we're trying to tighten things up a little bit, so it's kind of a, Sherry and I discussed it today.
I don't remember.
Jamie Hughes' wedding,
Who's that?
No, I
probably about 7, 8, yeah. I think her kid's like, yeah, yeah.
John Halpern, can you hear us? Okay, good. You have your stuff on? And folders and all that, no. You're gonna need to tell Sherry to sign on, so you should turn on the camera and I'll text you. Yeah. Let's see what it works, I'm just trying to figure out why I won't. Everyone else there. Thank you.
Bruce, are you going to qualify the first two? I mean, were you going to skip over them, or you just do you have something you were going to say?
Oh, let me pull up the agenda.
It's the first two ordinances.
Oh, okay. I'll jump in then if you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Why don't-
Just so I don't go to a table motion right away.
Yeah.
Mickey, you have the ability to put your camera on. I want to just test the equipment.
Hi, I'm here.
Okay, hi Nancy, there you go.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm gonna mute my.
Do you hear me, Sherry?
Yes, and we see you. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that I've got faces up there on that board. Okay, very good. Thanks, Mickey.
Sherry, I can't get into the agenda.
Capital BEACH.
Yeah, I usually see it, but. Oh, okay, there we go.
Parole officer, not now.
Do you know,
No, more people came in than one came up on the screen. Yeah.
do you know Officer Costa?
Yeah, does she still need it?
He's one of the cops, one of the cops.
Okay, we're
He's
good.
one of my former
Thanks.
students. And I was teaching the other day and I was like, oh, Costa. When I see him in his bar on Boulevard, we're like, he faces school property, Officer Costa.
I'm just gonna be one of my way.
Okay, everyone, welcome. Things are gonna look a little different. Meeting and the next meeting, we're going to be testing our in-person equipment to be continuing to Zoom with the public, starting on May 17th. We're opening Borough Hall to the public and also making the meetings from that point on open to the public for the mayor and council meetings. I don't want to speak for land use board, but mayor and council meetings. And then we will continue to maintain social distancing with the public here in the building and then allowing participants via Zoom. It's 4:02. Mayor, if you would like to order.
Good afternoon. It is 4:02 on Thursday, April 29th, 2021, and we are going to open our meeting, and Mrs. Rutherford will lead us in the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in the Beach Haven Municipal Building, on the borough website, and mailing the same to the Beach Haven Times, the Asbury Park Press, and the Press of Atlantic City. Mr. Allen.
Here.
Mrs. Ballmiller.
Here.
Dr. Davis. Dr. Davis, are you in with us?
Here, I'm here.
Thank you. Mrs. Rutherford? Here. Mayor Lambert?
Here.
I have minutes for approval today. The regular meeting of April 12th, 2021. Without formal reading.
Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion approved. Nancy, I'm going to put you back on mute, okay? Okay. All right, Bruce, I'm going to hand the agenda to you for the ordinances.
Okay, I'll give the council an update of what has occurred since the last meeting in relation to both ordinances 2021-4C and 5C, which deal with background checks for fire and first aid squad. Just by way of some background, The first aid ordinance was adopted in 2005, so it's been in place. And there were some issues earlier this year. There was a request for a waiver of the criminal background check requirement, and that's kind of what opened the door for us revising these ordinances. Obviously, we know there's been some issues with members of the public and objections to the ordinance, and since the last meeting, I did speak both with Chief Salazar and with Counsel for the First Aid Squad, Ms. Shackleton. The conversations I had with both parties went really well. I'm going to recommend that we do not proceed with the ordinances today, and what we will present hopefully at the next meeting is a revised ordinance. I'm waiting to hear back from some comments from Chief Salazar, and then I'm also going to circle back with Ms. Shackleton about the first aid squad portion of the ordinance. So these would be amended, or not amended, these would not be acted upon now, and we will probably introduce a new ordinance at the next meeting.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So, with that waiver that was given in February of this year, if we cannot come to some type of agreement with the first aid squad, what would happen to that waiver?
The waiver, there's no authority for the waiver, so it's, in legal terms, it's void ab initio and ultra vires, which means we didn't have there's no authority to grant that waiver, and it's invalid. We'd have to revisit that situation in the future.
Okay, thank you.
The public's just asking when you speak to get as close to the mic as possible, okay? Okay, so are we?
Any other questions?
What's the process now?
Right. So right now, I would say just to keep it as a placeholder, we could table it to the next meeting or table it indefinitely or just place it on the next meeting under old business, just so it doesn't fall through the cracks. So I'd request a recommendation or a motion to table this to the next meeting.
Which is May 10th.
And so one motion could table both ordinance 04 and 05.
Okay, so I guess I'll go ahead and make the motion then. Would anybody like to make a motion to table
So moved.
2021-4C and 2021-5C?
Thank you, Nancy, I heard
So
you.
moved.
Okay, would anybody like to?
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowmiller?
Yes.
Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mayor Lambert?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 2021-12C, an ordinance amending Chapter 61, boat ramps municipal of the Borough Code of the Borough of Beach Haven, County of Ocean, State of New Jersey, to eliminate the weekly pass option and to clarify that commercial passes are required for businesses. Final reading.
So we open it to the public, correct? As final reading. So public, please remember, we're going to ask you to limit it to 3 minutes. Raise your electronic hand or somehow make yourselves known. If there are any questions, comments about this ordinance?
Seeing none?
Seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comment. And is there a motion to approve 2021-12C?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Bowmiller?
Yes.
Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mayor Lambert?
Yes.
All matters listed under item consent agenda are considered to be routine by the municipal council and will be enacted by one motion in the form listed. Any items requiring expenditure are supported by a certification of availability of funds, and any item requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed separately. All consent agenda items will be reflected in full in the minutes. Resolution 93 is authorizing an application for the body camera grant program. 98 is awarding a contract to Earl Asphalt for the 2020 CDBG sidewalk project. 102 is executing a shared service agreement with Long Beach Township for street sweeper services. Resolution 103 is again amending and readopting the LoSAP certified list of eligibles for the fire company. 104 is recommending issuance of a raffle license, 01 and 02 for the Long Beach Island Historical Association. 105 is authorizing an online auction with Municibid for the boat slip leases. 106 is setting fees for water parts and testing. 109 is adopting the Council on Affordable Housing Affordability Assistance Manual for the Borough of Beach Haven. 110 is approving the fireworks display for the Fiora wedding as requested at the Seashell Resort. 111, emergency temporary appropriations. And 112 is authorizing the purchase of the mandatory police body camera equipment.
Okay, a lot of resolutions. Are there any questions, concerns, or anything you'd like removed?
Can we remove 110, please?
Yes.
Anything else?
I have no objections.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to approve the resolutions as read?
So moved.
Excluding.
I'm sorry, excluding 110.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Dan.
I'll second.
Thank you, Chris. Mr. Allen.
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Davis.
Yes.
Mrs. Rutherford.
Yes.
Mayor Lambert.
Yes.
Now you can consider resolution 110 separately.
So I just wanted to discuss the fireworks display because now that, fireworks are becoming more popular and more common, is this something that we are going to see more of? So I wanted to kind of feel out the council to see that. So you said that this has happened. I don't remember personally this in the past happening, so if you could enlighten me.
I would say it was maybe 5 years ago, was the daughter, Mr. Hughes, her wedding. They did it there for that. That was the only other time I can remember. And the only complaint I got when that was done was that the display was supposed to be short and it lasted too long. So we did talk to them about making sure that it was 15, 20 minutes, not 45 minutes. All the paperwork that they submitted to us, we had reviewed by the Joint Insurance Fund, and we did get a green light to proceed if the council so desired to approve it.
So I don't think it's really necessary. I think it's to assume that everyone around enjoys fireworks is kind of very presumptuous. So with keeping with the peace and order of the town, I would not recommend fireworks display for any weddings in the town, since we do have a considerable amount, not only at this one resort, but at a lot of the other places as well. So it's not something that I want to move forward with, and I think this really opens up the door to allowing that, being that fireworks is more common in the past few years everywhere.
I believe you said the groom was a pyrotechnic engineer of some kind, and I presume that was kind of why this was.
Well, I kind of hear what Jamie's saying. Does this open the door for every, as a wedding planner at every wedding? Hey, you want fireworks? They did it before. Let's see if we, So we're going to have 15-minute fireworks displays every weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So it's kind
We've
of.
had 2 since I've been here for this, so I don't see it becoming that. It's an expensive thing to add to a wedding, and you have discretion. No matter what the fireworks application that comes through, it requires a resolution of council, so it's at your discretion.
What's the date?
May 4th.
It's a Tuesday.
Next Tuesday?
Oh, that's
Yeah.
next week.
Yes.
Next Tuesday.
Yep.
On a school night?
For them.
May the 4th be with you.
That's another.
Yes, maybe they're Star Wars fan.
What, so not until nighttime, right, 9 o'clock, when all the kids are going to bed
Yep.
at the Beach Haven School?
Yeah, it's at least it's not in season, so.
Oh, gosh.
I would rather have it in season if the kids aren't in school. I mean, that just kind of.
I know my concern was, as we had talked about, environmentally with everything going in the bay and opening that whole can of worms, I don't know. Just
Why are we being pushed to do this in less than a week's time? These people have been probably planning this wedding for a while, so it's just,
You're not being pushed to do anything.
No, I know, but.
They did not They didn't think that it would be approved, and they called us and said, we've been thinking all along it wouldn't be approved, but can we at least try? And we looked at the date and went, okay, well, we'll try. If you can get all your paperwork in, we will submit it. That's exactly what we did. Jeff made sure all the paperwork was in order, so we followed the process. So
Yeah.
here it is.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing that kind of sticks out for me is we said no to Brian Wainwright for this
Mhm.
project here time and time again.
Right,
So it's,
but he's launching in the bay. This is on the ocean side.
yeah, but it could be argued he also does a lot for PK,
Mhm.
for the show.
Yep.
So it's, I'm kind of on the fence on this one. It's a tough one. It's school night.
Yeah.
I'm pretty consistent with the fireworks. I'm gonna, pretty much, environmentally, I'm not concerned when you're launching over a larger span of water. You're not gonna get heavily concentrated in one area. That's not my main concern, but it is for, the peace and good order of the surrounding neighbors. Now that I know that it is next Tuesday, it is on a school night. My child goes to bed at 9 o'clock. I know that probably all of the elementary school kids try to go to bed at 9 o'clock. It's not a weekend night. Yeah, I'm not for this.
I hear what you're saying. Personally, I'm thinking, well, and this probably wouldn't even fly, but keep it to 10 minutes, and then it's like 9:10, and move on. But, you do have a valid point with everything we've done with Mr. Wainwright, and, said we wanted to hold it down. We had slightly different reasoning there. I know. I can go either way on this one, actually.
Nancy, what are your thoughts?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. To be perfectly truthful, I can hear you better now, but I was having really trouble hearing before. Can you just briefly summarize what's going on? I'm sorry, but it was just really a lot of echoing and noise, and I couldn't really focus. So I can't really give you many thoughts. I think I know what you're talking about, but I'm not really sure.
I'm talking about a request to have a small fireworks display on the ocean side this coming Tuesday for a wedding at the Seashell.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I could go either way on it. I don't really have any problems with it. I don't think it's going to make that much difference in the ocean, right on the shore, as long as it's not going in the bay.
Yeah, Nancy, I didn't mention I wasn't concerned about the environmental effects of the fireworks. I was more concerned about it being on a Tuesday night, and that for the surrounding neighborhood, is that really fair that we're really opening up the door to fireworks, not only for weddings, but now on weekdays?
At what time are they going to shoot these fireworks off?
Well, what time does it get dark? 8:30 now, I think is.
8:45-ish, yeah.
Yeah, probably when it's dark.
I mean, it's fine by me. I mean, I'll have a great view, but my only problem is I wouldn't want to set a precedent. I mean, is this going to mean that everybody that's having a wedding is going to want fireworks on the beach? I mean, how big a display is it going to be, and how long is it going to be? I mean, is it a couple, that would be my only concern. I just wouldn't want to set a precedent and have fireworks all the time. And what's the date of this?
Tuesday, May 4th.
Okay. Oh, that's right. I remember that now. Yeah, May 4th is my granddaughter's birthday. I remember reading that. Yep. Okay. I don't. I'm in the middle. I don't really care. I don't think. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference as long as we don't start doing it every day in the summer and every weekend in the summer.
Right. I mean, that's my concern.
We have a big agenda, so
Yeah.
Let's make a decision.
yeah.
Okay. My vote's no.
Jamie, are you making a motion to?
Did anybody even move it?
No.
Right, so before you can
Okay.
vote, somebody has to even make a motion. If nobody makes the motion, it just dies, so.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion to not approve Resolution 110.
So there's a motion on the table to deny Resolution 110. 2021.
I second that motion.
Okay, the motion on the table is to deny. Mr. Allen?
So to be clear, a yes is a denial.
Correct.
Correct.
All right. Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller?
Yes.
Dr. Davis?
No,
Mrs. Rutherford?
Yes.
Mayor Lambert?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, tonight we are opening the floor for the public comment on the 2021 municipal budget. Sherry Fuller, our CFO, should be on the meeting. There you are. Hey Sherry, did you want to give a brief synopsis and then take questions from the public?
Okay, sure. I mean, the report that we read at introduction, do you want me to go through everything again?
I just in case there are folks on tonight's call for the public hearing that were not on for the introduction, this is the meeting that we publicized for as the public hearing.
Sure, no problem. The total appropriation of the budget, including the reserve for uncollected, is $13,299,608.82. This was an increase of $128,915 from 2020, which overall was less than a percent increase. It was 0.98% overall increase. The changes from the budget from 2020, salary and wage actually had a 5% change, 5% increase with an increase of $231,871. Our operating expenses actually went down by 1.21%. They went down by $102,955. Our revenues, one second. Our revenues, same total, $13,299,608. The biggest changes in our revenue really were surplus. We left mostly the same. We increased it by $3,636. Our local tax for the municipal budget, we had a tax increase this year. We raised taxes by 1 cent for a total dollar value of $288,235.72. The library tax had an increase of $47,187.49, which is mandated by the state. We had a reduction in our revenue for our reserve for payment of debt service by $180,000. That was a one-time increase that we had put in the budget last year to compensate for the increased appropriation for the community disaster loan. So we were able to pull that back out of the budget this year and also reduce the appropriation to offset that. So the tax rate, like I said, we increased that by 1 cent. We had a long discussion this year on how to balance the budget. We had some lengthy analysis on what we've done over the past few years. And we have not had a tax increase in 4 years. We have been utilizing more of our surplus over the past few years, consistently by about 200 to 300,000 each year. We've been utilizing more of municipal surplus to balance the budget. As a result of operations in 2020, we actually had a reduction in our surplus, and that's the first time we've had that happen for a few years. So after long talks, we decided to balance the budget with still the use of surplus, which was at a higher amount than what we have over the past few years with a 1% tax increase to balance the budget. Our water utility has had no change in their appropriation or revenue. Their total appropriation in the water utility budget is $1,857,500.
Thank you, Sherry. Anything else before we open the floor? Okay.
Yeah.
I do see one hand up. John Halpern, you have your hand up, a question for the budget?
Just a comment. I'm John Halpern, 319 Fairview Avenue, Beach Haven. I'm also president of the Beach Haven Taxpayers Association. When we review the budget, as Sherry indicated, the budget equates to $13.3 million. Of that, municipal taxes represent $8.17 million, or a $288,000 increase from 2020. But on further review, we see a surplus balance at the end of 12/31/2020 of $7.2 million. In 2020, the appropriation budget was $13.17 million, but the cash received was $14.1 million. So the total surplus in terms of reserve approximated $1.1 million, with an additional $596,000 for the library tax. On the revenue side, we see beach
Sherry,
tax.
did you want to that first question first? Let's take it one question at a time.
It's a comment, not a question.
Yeah, I didn't actually hear a question. I think you're just commenting on some of the dollars.
I'm commenting on the dollars, and we're seeing room in the revenue side of the budget, which I was going to articulate, where we have beach badge fees of $335,000 that are budgeted versus $549,000 that was received. Hotel taxes, $150,000 budgeted versus $226,000 that was received. And we have a library tax of $816,000 budgeted and $172,000 that was received in 2020. In summary, the Beach Haven Taxpayers Association doesn't believe, given the amount of the reserve surpluses, as well as room on the revenue side of the budget, that the taxpayers should fund any more further tax increases. We commend the borough wholeheartedly for being fiscally responsible in the last 3 or 4 years, but to recommend a $280,000 taxpayer increase, we don't think is appropriate at this time.
Thank you. Any other public comments for the 2021 municipal budget? Sherry, I don't see anything else. Just confirm that we didn't get approval from the state because it hasn't been reviewed yet.
Correct, and I did, along those lines, I will forward to you. I just got an email from the state basically saying the same, that due to the large volume of public hearings scheduled, their review process may not be complete by your scheduled public hearing date, and they want you to continue on with your public hearing, not delay it. So that is also why we are still here going forward.
So if we hear from them, we could be looking at adoption on the May 10th meeting?
That is the hope. That is the goal.
Okay. Thank you, Sherry. I have a bill list this evening in the amount of $63,723.92.
Did everybody get a chance to review the bills tonight?
Yes, I have all questions like I like to do, so yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to speak about now, or everybody okay and no questions? All right, is there a motion to approve the bills?
Approved.
Is there a second?
This is the approval of bills, Nancy. I'm roll calling. Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mrs. Ball Miller? Yes. Dr. Davis?
Yes.
Mrs. Rutherford? Yes. Mayor Lambert?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I jumped ahead. Did any of you want to have questions for Shari about the budget or no?
No, I think
No.
we've already done that.
Okay, just making sure. Okay, well, we'll move on to the general discussion part of the meeting. I'm really happy that we're all sitting up here together finally, again, after all this time. I would really like to get back to utilizing this agenda meeting, the 4 o'clock meeting, to be able to talk amongst us. It's been hard to write legislation properly without you all here. So we have quite a few proposed ordinances on for discussion today. We're going to review, and then we will hopefully move them forward for introduction at the May 10th meeting and try to stick to the regular meetings for business going forward unless we have a reason where we need to kind of speed up the process. So we'll start with that. Ordinance 2021-13C, as you recall, we just did a zoning ordinance for porches and stairs, and we agreed that we were going to immediately come back and make some additional changes as the council felt it important that that original ordinance go through as is. So what you see here in front of you is those additional changes where we're going to add the words of unconditioned space. We touched on this before, and about the railings and walls, that they shall not be solid unless transparent, and that porches may be enclosed with insect screenings. And then under section 21K in that same ordinance, where we're saying that ductless systems for heat and air, we're more closely identifying what can encroach. Any questions on those? Any concerns about the way it's drafted?
This goes before the land use board next, is that it?
This was their suggestions.
Okay, but do they need to approve it also, or?
So when we introduce it May 10th, we will not have to send it back to them for review because they were their suggestions, but we'll have to go through our process to approve an ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, 2021-14C is an ordinance regarding mandatory source separation of recyclable material. We received an ordinance from the county Health Department Recycling Coordinator urging us to put some more stringent recycling requirements into our ordinance and to allow them to come in and help us enforce these things. So I think this ordinance is still in the works. I don't think that we're quite ready to present, but I wanted to just go over with you the nuts and bolts. So the basic points in the ordinance so far is related to businesses. Businesses in Beach Haven that offer an outdoor trash receptacle would then also have to offer an outdoor recycling receptacle with it. So that would be a pair. Another thing that we would like to introduce, add to this ordinance is that all recyclable materials for a business must be in a bin for collection. So no longer would a loose cardboard or bound cardboard be accepted. It would have to be in a dumpster to be collected.
What if they don't have a dumpster? The cardboard has to be in the blue containers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For business?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be pretty tough for some businesses.
Why is that?
Well, to have
Use your
another,
mic.
to have another dumpster specifically for recycling, I know most do already, but some places that don't have the space to do that, that's gonna present a problem.
Mm-hmm. That they already have dumpsters, but they can't
No.
fit another?
No, yeah, well, they may have a dumpster for just regular trash and, the staff's closed and been able to bundle their cardboard, so for them to go get another container, it may not all fit in one of our blue recyclable containers, so that could place an undue burden on them as far as the recycling collection would go.
So we would allow a business up to 3 95-gallon blue cans
Okay.
they wanted to use for that. Wouldn't be limited to one.
Yeah. Okay.
So then that brings us to the next. Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, so I thought about it. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm a big I'm really a big advocate of recycling, and I'm just worried that by doing this, it's just going to make the businesses just throw, what they normally would recycling into their trash.
Say that one more time.
The other, I mean that concerns me a little bit. I'm, it's a little confusing, and if they take their cardboard and they put it together and tie strings around it, does it have to be in a container if it's all tied up in a bundle?
Yeah, the draft requires it to be in a receptacle or a bin. It can't be loose or bound.
I'm just worried that it's just going to, people are just going to say, oh, this is just so much hassle. I'm just going to throw this stuff in with the regular trash.
It'd be fine.
Well, it's illegal to do that. You can't, that's part of this. It's a mandatory source separation ordinance that requires that you,
right,
you
but
cannot
are we going to have somebody
put
inspecting the trash? Are we going to have a trash inspector that's going to go around and look at the trash to see what's going out? I mean, some towns do that.
Yes, we do. We have a Ocean County Health Department recycling coordinator. We have a code enforcement officer, and we have a local recycling coordinator that would be eligible to enforce the ordinance.
Okay.
So we'll keep going, and then we can discuss, because this is far from written in stone. Another request from our municipal recycling department is that for commercial businesses, maximum commercial recycling shall be 3 95-gallon cans of clean commingled recycling. If businesses exceed 3 95-gallon cans of clean commingled recycling, they must contract with a private hauler for commingled collection. However, cardboard will still be collected by the municipality in a receptacle.
So on the books already, we have.
Use your microphone.
In our code book, we already have for solid waste. So this is just clarifying for recyclables, because we already have that. We can have 3 95-gallon containers for regular household waste. So now you can have a total of 6: 3 recyclable, 3 regular.
You're talking about commercial businesses?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. It doesn't really clarify for recycling, but it does clarify for regular.
Because the recycling is becoming more and more cumbersome for the department, and we no longer benefit greatly from the recycling revenue sharing program like we used to, and we actually foresee that recycling programs are going to begin to cost us money as we go forward. So we have a lot of issues with dirty, mixed, commingled recycling. So this is an attempt to make it clean and limit the businesses that are exceeding more than we can handle.
Gotcha.
The next part would be that any private recycling hauler that's used by a business must provide an annual report to the recycling coordinator of what was hauled at the end of the year, so we can track what was hauled. Also, in this proposed ordinance is that if a land use board application is received for construction of multifamily of 3 or more units, or a commercial unit utilizing 1,000 square feet of land, that a recycling plan must be submitted with their application, and that prior to a certificate of occupancy, they must provide us with a contract with their private hauler so we can make sure that they're doing it. It also states that it's unlawful for a privatized, like a private solid waste hauler, to collect trash and recycling mixed, or to collect a clearly marked recyclable material and dump it into a trash truck. Because we have seen that where someone will bring Pinto in and they'll go up to the property and dump every single can in front of the property into their truck and just take it. Another part of this ordinance, and this has been quite the debate lately with the department heads, is the idea of a construction demolition debris recovery plan. where any construction or demolition project would have to try to capture and recycle 25% of the project for recycling. So we see some issues with reporting. So we're still working through that one. I don't know if we're going to be able to exactly implement what the county has provided us. Requires a lot of work. So that's still up for discussion. The fines can range from $250 to $1,000. Court appearance would be required, and the funds would be deposited into a recycling trust account. That's something new, where the funds would then only be utilized to continue to implement the recycling program.
So this is coming from the county?
It's kind of a hybrid. The county provided one, and then also Chris Carson had given us suggestions to make his department run a little smoother. So, and Bruce has been helping us trying to connect the dots.
Yeah, we've had several meetings. And we did, I don't know if you said this, Sherry, sorry, we made it effective the end of the year to try to give people time.
So I just have a question, maybe you can help me out, Bruce, with the construction demolition recovery plan. So if I'm a builder and I'm building a house and I have all, I have wood and I have dirt and I have plastic and I have this and that, usually that just all goes in the dumpster and carted away. Now I have to submit a plan and then follow that plan and then separate all of their garbage, like wood, where does that go? Where does this go?
Where are we putting all the dumpsters?
Yeah, and that's just our code enforcement officers who has to go around now and not only see if the dumpster is covered, but to make sure that it's not commingled garbage?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we've been discussing it, and we're still not sure how we're gonna.
Right, doesn't that require like proper training on like the developer? Like the last thing that I'm sure that the guys want to do is after they, are building all day, is then they have to separate this from that. And how do they even know?
Yeah.
Well, I know that to save money, they're already pulling out concrete and having that hauled away separately, and
Right.
they can do cardboard separately. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. We would hope for 25%, but we've discussed that maybe we don't put a percentage on it at all. Maybe we just say that for commercial or for construction sites, you must recycle cardboard, this and that to the best of your ability. And so,
All right.
just so you know, we're working on it, and we'll come back to it.
Yeah, I was just curious too, what kind of burden this is going to put on the businesses if we're limiting them and then having them pay for an outside service. I think, probably be a good idea, to hear from some of the business owners, their thoughts.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to become a burden, period. And in New Jersey, it's the law, so between a rock and a hard place.
Is that part of-
Recycle, yes.
Well, to do that kind of recycling with the 3 cans is
Right.
national.
Is that the county, or is that something we're
I'm
in?
saying like,
No, that they have.
yeah, everyone has to. recycle.
Generally, yeah.
It's becoming
Right.
more of a burden, so.
I don't think anybody would argue with that, but I know some of the smaller, maybe retail businesses that take a lot of deliveries in cardboard boxes would probably be able to fill more than 3 bins.
They can always bring it over to the recycling yard and dump it in the
That's what I was going to ask,
dumpster.
because the cardboard really takes up a lot of room. So would that be a possibility for them, is to bring over their cardboard?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have some things in place to help them to some degree of this. Okay.
So that's ongoing.
Okay.
Okay, ordinance 2021-15C. Colleen, this is the one that you asked us to put together for you. That would require applications to give a CAFRA applicability determination. So that would go under site plan review, chapter 167, for all applications located within 150 feet of a body of water. An applicability determination from the Department of Environmental Protection that determines the applicability of CAFRA, the Wetlands Act of 1970, and/or the Waterfront Development Law to a proposed project received pursuant to. It also would put an expiration date on the site plan approvals, 2 years from the date of final approval.
Yes, I did ask for this, I think, in view of, some of the situations we've been encountering, that this would be a prudent way to go to hopefully stave off any future issues. And I think letting things go indefinitely, just because they don't need a variance, isn't a good idea. People who are on the land use board now were not on the land use board when something was approved a long time ago, and I think there was confusion there. I think the CAFRA thing should be on the developer, the builder, to make sure they have all the proper documents in place.
Bruce, time period extensions are permitted. Is there a chunk of time that they would be allowed to extend it? Is it a year? Is it 6 months?
I don't know off the top of my head, so I don't want to shoot.
I think we
from the hip
talked
on
about
that
a
one.
year, and then they could go for a second year.
Okay.
But that's the discretion of the land use board if they want to grant it. So, right now, you could theoretically be talking about 4 years, which if you don't know what you're doing in 4 years, that's kind of telling, right?
Has the land use board had any look at this yet, or is it still just all conceptual at this point?
I showed the draft to Bonnie Linhart, the chair, and she was okay with it. She said, well, let's see how it works. Let's see if it maybe solves some of our issues.
Mm-hmm.
Any other concerns with it?
No.
Okay. All right, I gave you 2021-16. That is the salary ordinance for 2021. It establishes the ranges for every position within the borough. We did do an analysis and did show that none of the existing salaries exceed the ranges. So I don't see any reason why we wouldn't continue with first reading May 10th, but I wanted you to have a chance to look at it and ask questions if you needed to. And this is always followed up once it's approved with a salary resolution, which more precisely indicates the salary that that position receives for 2021. This sets the range, the salary resolution sets the salary.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on that one?
No, I had some and you answered them earlier, so I don't need to ask any more.
I find this really helpful to be able to understand, what we're doing here in town versus where other places are, so thank you.
Yeah, and the spreadsheet that we provided had some extra columns. When it gets attached to this resolution, will only be the job title and the low and the high range.
Mm-hmm.
2021-17 is authorizing the execution of an encroachment easement agreement. Did everyone have a chance to review that?
Yes.
Jamie, you understand this a lot better than I. Did you want to explain for those in the audience what exactly this is?
The encroachment agreement?
Yeah, 2021-17.
Bay Village.
It's for bistro food.
Is this for the awning?
Yes.
So it's just that the awning is going to be extending to the westerly proportion of the borough right-of-way. So we are giving them permission in order to do that.
And it's extending towards Seagull, right?
Yes.
2.6 feet? Is that what it was?
Yeah, I think it's about that.
And I did receive a partially executed agreement from Bay Village already, so once our ordinance goes through, we'll introduce it on May 10th and we can execute our portion. Okay. Anything to add on that?
No?
Bruce, can you take the F on the proposed ordinance for the personnel handbook?
Where is that? I know.
Under general discussion. F
Oh, I
just pull your mic close so everyone can hear you.
Sure. Your personnel manual is embodied in your borough code. Some municipalities do that. I usually recommend that you remove it from there. So that's something we're working on now. We would need an ordinance to rescind that entire section of your code. At the same time, we're going to provide you a resolution and a new handbook, which just makes it easier to work with. You can adopt it by resolution, you could change it by resolution. Kind of what spurred this on was the MEL, the Municipal Excess Liability Carrier, recently prepared a total revision to their model handbook and are distributing it through the county GIFs. So we're working with that, which actually my office prepared for the MEL, so we're very familiar with it. And we're preparing an updated handbook, and we'll probably have that ready for the next meeting.
Nancy, did you have a question?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Bruce, did you want some examples of some of the changes that were made, or do you want to discuss that when we bring the manual back for approval by resolution?
I'd say probably when we bring the manual back, so we know what we're looking at.
Yeah, and really generally speaking, the changes were not in terms of, you know, the amount of sick days you give, which a lot of that is governed by your collective bargaining agreements anyway. But it's really more language changes that the GIF wanted and that the MEL wanted to protect them and limit municipal liability kind of statewide. So it's more general portions of that and not anything that's really Beach Haven specific. Your Beach Haven specific things are going to remain the same.
So the ordinance that you'll see May 10th is an ordinance repealing the personnel chapter from the code book.
Okay. That's what I want to know.
We'll do that first.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Okay.
Number 2, on general discussion, we just wanted to continue to have a discussion amongst the council about the idea of the cannabis sales in New Jersey. Not sure who'd like to start that discussion, but
Just a little
Okay,
back.
I'd like to.
Has all of the other municipalities on the island decided? I know that
I believe so.
I listened to Ship Bottom last night and they said no. Sorry, last night I was listening to the Ship Bottom council meeting and they said no. So.
Yep.
No to what?
To any of the possible cannabis permits in their town.
We've denied all classes.
Cannabis.
Oh, cannabis, sorry.
So I was just wondering what are the other towns doing?
Right.
Are they the last to decide or, you know?
Right.
I was just curious.
And a lot of towns have already said no prior to even the adoption of this new law too, which then unfortunately I read had to be rescinded.
Right,
but-
negated them.
The only town I'm not sure of is Stafford, Bruce. I don't know if you know what they're doing, but.
I don't know. I'll see if I could find out.
Municipalities have all gotten back to me and confirmed that their governing bodies are not entertaining any classes of
What?
cannabis.
May I make a comment? Why
Yeah,
does
go
it
ahead.
really matter what the other? Can I make a comment? I don't know.
Yes, Nancy, go ahead.
It's really hard the Zoom doesn't work so well in this framework. It's really hard for me to hear what everybody's saying clearly. It's unlike when everybody's on their own Zoom and you can hear very clearly. So
Yeah.
it's somewhat stressful. It's just different. And I don't know. I'm going to talk to the tech people at Stockton and see if there's a way we can make this better for the future. But so I just want to make a comment. Well, when I can. But I don't know why it really matters what the other towns do. We don't have to be just like them. I mean, why can't we be unique? My feeling is if we were to allow the delivery business of cannabis, it would bring a huge amount of money into our town. And we can earmark that money for specific things that we want to accomplish. You're not allowed to smoke cannabis on the street or on the beach or in public places. The only place you're allowed to smoke the cannabis is in your home or your own yard. Basically, we can't stop that anyway. Even if we disallowed any cannabis business in town, people could have it delivered to their house from another town, and basically, or they could bring it in themselves. They could buy it somewhere else and bring it in. So you can't stop the use of cannabis. But certainly, we can be very vigilant about keeping people from smoking cannabis on the streets or in public places. If we allowed a delivery business, and I personally don't, I think that would be the best way to go, because I really don't think it's a great idea to have head shops and salons like in Amsterdam where you can go in and smoke this stuff. But I do think that if you had a delivery business in town, the revenues coming into the town are extremely high, and that would allow us to do things that we've been wanting attempting to do for a long time. If we needed, we could hire extra police to make sure that people weren't smoking cannabis on the beach or on the streets. I don't know if we need that, but we certainly could earmark the revenue from basically for kids stuff. So we could maybe hire a coordinator for the parks, and we could have that person organize activities for young people. We could have evening activities and daytime activities. It would really, I think, enhance really address the problems that we're having in our town with all these kids in the summer. I mean, the revenues could conceivably be, well, on a 12-month basis, like $50,000 or more a month. In the summer, of course, it would be higher. We could also limit the number of these delivery businesses. We could only have one, or we could have two. But the advantage, if the other towns on the island do not allow delivery businesses in our town, people are still going to call. They'll call somewhere. There'll be a delivery place somewhere nearby, and they'll still get their cannabis. Why not have? It just seems insane not to take those revenues and utilize them in a way that will enhance the activities for kids in our town and decrease the problems we are having. It's going to happen. You're going to have cannabis in the town whether you want it or not. I would rather allow the delivery business and utilize that money to make sure that the rules are being enforced as to where you can smoke the cannabis, and also to try to improve the environment for teenagers, and I think that's our problem. It's been very difficult to come up with a solution. So that's my point of view on this. I think it would be the smart thing to do.
Thank you, Nancy.
Sherry, to answer your question, Stafford, I believe, is against all 6 forms.
Okay, and I did talk with Mickey in your office, and he confirmed that you can allow a delivery only. You're not required to have a storefront or a lobby, or it can be simply delivery only. It's not required to have both components.
Okay. Well, if I can jump in here, I do feel sometimes it's good to be a trendsetter, but I don't think in this case, I don't agree that this is the way for Beach Haven to set the tone, be the only one. I did hear from Senator Connor's office, our senator for the 9th Legislative District, and Assemblywoman Gove and Assemblyman Rump, and they said they are not in favor of this being legalized in Ocean County. We know that federally it still hasn't been decriminalized, which is also a little bit of a sticking point. I guess we can go around that technically. I spoke to a lot of people, and granted, most of them were my age and up, so we're talking the Medicare set, but even a couple of the younger people, and they said, you know, when they voted to approve, it was basically to decriminalize. They didn't necessarily want it open and available in our town, and that was pretty much 95% of what I heard. I heard one person say, I don't have a problem with it, but the rest are like, well, no, it's not consistent with our family-friendly resort, which we've discussed before. I think I'm really afraid that we already have an issue with the kids, and I think this would be like a giant magnet. And just like, you know, you find somebody to go in the liquor store when you were a kid, well, you find somebody to go in the cannabis store. I don't think it's going to help the town. I really don't. You know, you look at a place like Seaside Heights, Jersey Shore, famous for their party scene. They've said no. I know, and I don't want to speak for the chief, but he and I have had a discussion. I'm sure he can speak for himself. He has listed, yeah, he is on the meeting. He has told me, and I'm sure, and he's mentioned it publicly before, he does not favor that. I talked to a member of the first aid squad. They said they have enough to do with some of the other things that are going on in town, and they feel that adding this to the collection would only make their load heavier. I just personally don't feel it's the right fit for Beach Haven. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Well, I think we're all, you know, I understand your concerns. I taught a psychopharmacology course for many years. I personally don't smoke marijuana. I'm not really in favor of legalizing it, but it is legal. Ocean County can't stop the use of it in Ocean County. And it's basically on the medical side of it, all I can say is I've seen people, for example, my husband, who it's really made a huge difference. I mean, he was down weighing less I am, and I think, but we're not talking about medical cannabis, which is, but it's not going to, the use of cannabis in a town is not going to change regardless of whether we allow a delivery business or not, because it's going to be there. And you can't stop it. The police can't say, or the Ocean County can't say, you can't have it, we can't have it in Ocean County. That's not going to happen. So I just feel that the revenues that we could gain from it would really enhance some of the problems that we're having in town. It would enhance our ability to actually deal with what you're saying, Pauline, deal with the use of it and any kind of disrespect or unlawful use of the drug, because it's going to be there whether you want it or not. I mean, personally, I would not have voted to legalize it. Medically, yes, but not recreationally. But it has been approved. It's going to happen. Whether we want it or not, why not get some revenue so that we can actually have some money that can help us address some of the problems that we anticipate from the use of this in our town? I don't need to say any more. I think I got my point across.
Thank you, Nancy.
So my thoughts on this are more of an ethical perspective, I guess. I see us as a family-friendly town, and one of the examples I would like to share is like Ocean City. They are a dry town, so they have no alcohol in their town, and every year they have to come up for renewal on that, and businesses are trying to push their way in. They want to have alcohol in their town, and despite the revenue that they may gain from that, they continue every year to choose not to allow alcohol to be served in the limits of Ocean City, New Jersey. So yes, I know that that's a different town, but at the same time, they're a family-friendly environment. And so for me, I would like to continue to see that here. When I hear saying that we're going to use the money for cannabis to fund children's programs, that's hard for me to swallow as a nurse and as a mom. Decriminalizing it, yeah, but to have it in our town, I have a hard time with that. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you.
I understand Nancy's point of view, and I understand Colleen's point of view, and Chris's point of view as well. At this time, I feel that it's relatively too new, and it would be a lot easier if I knew of a specific business or a reputable dealer, someone that could give me more information on this, but as it is so new, I wouldn't feel comfortable with allowing this in the town, being that it is so new. And the reason why Nan said I wanted to see if the other towns is because we border both towns. We border township on both ends, so I wanted to see, what they were doing just for concern of our own town. That's why I wanted to know what everybody else was doing, because we do border township on the both sides. I have a question though for either Bruce or Mickey. So if we say no to all six, there's six, right? Mm-hmm. 6 of these. It's no till when? Like you can't really.
You could go back and you could permit it in the future, but if you permit it now, you can't go back and prohibit it for 5 years.
Okay, so if we say no to all 6.
Yeah.
Then let's say next summer, a business comes in, they've got a great reputation, they do this and this, and we wanted to revisit this.
You can do that.
We could do that.
You can become more permissive. You can't become more restrictive.
Okay.
I have been contacted by a potential micro license holder for Beach Haven, and she asked to meet with a few council. So if you would like to do that, I can set up a meeting so you can ask her some questions. It's up to you.
But what's the time frame? I mean, I know we have 180 days, so.
Right, from February, I think it was.
Right.
So,
August 22nd.
So you need to have an effective ordinance by August.
Yeah.
He just earned his pay for attending the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, because to me, my view is that we say no to all of them, and then then you start to hear what people have to say and decide what you want to do based off of that. But
I can support that.
I agree. I think we need more discussion. I don't want to close the door on this right away. Morristown, where I also own property and where my kids went to school, is a dry town. They don't allow the sale of alcohol, but believe me, there's plenty of alcohol being used in Morristown, and it really has affected business. It's really discouraged a lot of people from building restaurants in town, to the point that a few years ago, the Morristown Council voted to allow alcohol to be served in restaurants in Morristown Mall. Haddonfield also is a dry town. They're both Quaker towns. Actually, I go to Quaker meetings, and I believe pretty much the Quaker beliefs. But basically, to me, this really discourages business, and I just don't think it's going to create a major problem. So I just would like to continue the discussion. We have quite a long time before we have to make a decision about this. I don't think we should jump the gun.
So Nancy, you're saying that you don't want to make a decision to eliminate all 6 at this time and then maybe revisit?
I'm saying I don't want to have a vote to deny, to restrict the use of it until we hear from other people, that we have a public discussion, that, people that are interested in doing a business, have a chance to talk to us. I just don't think we should make a decision at this point. We still have quite a bit of time before we can make that decision. I understand the concerns. As I said, I personally don't believe in, I'm multitasking. I'm at the airport trying to find the right place to go. I just think, we should give it more thought. We shouldn't come to a decision immediately.
Bruce, is it introduction by August or adoption?
It's not clear to me when I read it. Adopt it.
Yes.
Effective.
Yeah.
Have it effective by that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to roll it back then, obviously, time for the process.
I think we have time before, if we want to say that we're not allowing any, that we reject all the business opportunities in our town, we still have time to make a decision on that. We don't have to, we can give it a little more time.
Thanks, Nancy. We're going to
That's all I'm asking for at this point.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay, it's my understanding that it's going to be a while before, even if we adopt and allow anything to happen in town before even, it's probably a year and a half away from being a reality anyway, regardless of what we do. I'm not necessarily against the idea of saying no, because no's can be reversed, yeses can. Once you say yes, you're married to it for 5, 6 years. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas a no, if you get somebody that comes in with a good business plan, a good safety model, and we would consider that's a way we could possibly reverse a no on that front. I think it would be helpful to get some people on the other side of the fence on this, and to talk about, I know, for a long time cannabis is, I have friends that talk to me about this, and I won't name, but they say there's a misconception, that if we do this, you're going to have a shop with tie-dye in the window and, seedy people hanging around, whereas it's really not, and according to them, not that way. And I think, they could be afforded a chance to talk to us too. If it's being decriminalized by so many states, it begs the question, how bad is it really? This has been an ongoing battle for years and years. You read on social media and things, So I think it would be helpful to, stay open-minded with it, and not necessarily, we can say no now, but don't just plant your feet and shut the door on it completely. If something an opportunity arises, because I think the letter, am I allowed to talk about the letter?
What letter?
The micro license you
Yeah.
sent?
Mhm.
I mean, I know it's, dollar is the root of all evil, but, it's, the numbers she said staggered me, I think it was up to 80,000 a month.
She ranged between 60 and 120,000 a month, so
Kind of averaging a little bit.
even on the low end, you're substantial revenue.
Wasn't that just a micro business, Sherry?
Yes.
I mean, that's staggering. I mean, that's not something to sneeze at. I mean, that lowers taxes, if that's the case. We go up a penny this year, and the Taxpayers Association's unhappy with it, and we do this, we can go down 2 cents next year. But it's at what cost? I mean, the ethical problem, I know that Chris has, I totally understand. But that goes to the point where I'm trying to say that maybe we need to have a conversation with people that don't see an ethical problem, and maybe they have new information, that we haven't learned since health class when we were in high school. I mean, I don't know. So, I mean, it's worth the discussion, but I think it's smart to say no now, because if you say yes, you can't stop it. You have to, once you open the Pandora's box, it's open. So.
Well, if you'd like, the next agenda meeting at the end of May, I can have a couple folks on for you to listen to, even if it's a short presentation, we can hear it and move on. We continue to educate ourselves.
That'd be helpful. Again, we're a long way away from, seeing anything come to fruition, even after, if we say yes or no, get somebody licensed. It's a long time away,
So if we do that though, sorry, I mean to cut you off, but if we do that, then, so that's the end of May, we're listening to people. We have then 2 months to get that adopted and get it through before August 22nd. So, we're still, I guess, what do we do? Right in after we have that meeting, what happens?
Yeah, I mean, I once you make a decision, I would do the ordinance as quickly as possible, just because time goes by faster than we all think.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
Especially once we hit Memorial Day and 4th of July. I mean, summer will be over in a blink.
You'd be introduced in July, you could adopt at the August meeting, be a few weeks ahead of the deadline.
Okay.
With an adoption.
So July would be the.
Introduction.
Yeah, by July, we'd have to have something.
Yeah.
Paper, basically.
I mean, I would try for June if you could.
Yeah.
Just you never know what's going to happen. Leave yourself an extra month.
I think, if we get to that point, we're still on the fence, I think we start adopting to deny, because then we still have the option, that if we don't do anything, we take no action.
Right.
Then it's.
We can still listen. We can still listen to anyone from the public, even if we do deny this, or businesses coming in, because we can always, rescind that, and so.
Yeah, it's good for me to hear you say that, so that I know if someone comes to me and says, I know that you're willing to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I would also recommend, hearing from our local businesses, what are their thoughts on that? I mean, not at this presentation of the pro, cannabis proponents, but
well,
for
now
shops.
that we're having this discussion on the record, the word's out, and maybe public comment for the next few meetings we'll hear.
Yeah.
Right, because no one has really made public comment about this yet, so
No.
I'm waiting.
Bring it. Okay, anything else on this before we move on?
No.
Okay, then we'll just quickly go to a continued discussion regarding the glyphosate. Not sure who wants to take that one either. I know we had some in favor, some not. Bruce, would it ever be appropriate just to adopt an ordinance in concept that just says that, we're an environmentally conscious town and we want folks to be environmentally conscious and refrain from using things like this?
I think if you wanted to do something like that, it should be more in line with an resolution, just expressing some kind of general public policy for the borough. There's some ambiguity on whether we can actually adopt an ordinance or whether it's preempted by state regulation. I believe we can, but we'd have to get state approval, DEP approval of an ordinance that provides a more restriction than what is in state regulation now. If you want to have some impactful event, you could adopt an ordinance that prohibits the borough from using glyphosate. Does Did I say it correctly?
Glyphosate.
Glyphosate. Different accent.
New York just passed. They just passed. They're prohibiting it in all public places. Certainly, we can prohibit it in public places. I also feel that environmentally, it's definitely the right thing to do. I don't know if anybody in the time we had the last meeting has read the book Tom's River, which I was trying to encourage people to read. But I do think that there's time that we really need to do this. And I'm sorry, I'm in this huge traffic jam. So basically, years ago, I think I've told this story. I was in a conference for mayors in Belgium at the EU. And I actually was there because my son was working at the EU, and Schwarzenegger gave a speech. And the one thing he said, if you want to make environmental change, it can bubble up. You have to start at the municipal level. He said he was talking to the mayors throughout the EU, and his comment was, you can't wait for the country or the state to enforce these rules. You've got to start somewhere. So basically, I think it's a good idea that we try to have an ordinance at least prohibiting it in public areas.
Okay, so I've been reading about glyphosate all day. So glyphosate as a chemical, and then any chemical that you use, you have to be conscious of what you're using and how to protect yourself. Personally, I do not use weed killer. I pull them out myself, but that's my own personal decision to limit myself from certain chemicals in my own household. However, if you look at the chemistry of glyphosate and the chemistry of all of the other herbicides and pesticides and insecticides that are out there on the market today, glyphosate is not as lethal as some of the other herbicides or even your household chemicals. For example, the LD50 rate for glyphosate is 4,900 milligrams per kilogram, where something like Tylenol is 338. I mean, the LD50, the lethal dose for glyphosate, and this is getting into the chemistry of it, is a lot higher. It would take a lot more to potentially harm you. Now, there's a lot of research out there for glyphosate. The World Health Organization versus, the EPA saying it's a probable carcinogen, and then the EPA saying it's not a carcinogen. There's a ton of research to read, but at the end of the day, the reason that glyphosate is the most popular herbicide on the market is because of Monsanto. And what Monsanto has done is has made genetically modified crops. And so in 1996 is when Monsanto started their genetically modified soybean. And what they do is they modify our crops, soybean, cotton, canola, various grains, to be resistant towards glyphosate. And so they can have, mass amounts of crop yield because they can spray the glyphosate, which kills the weeds but doesn't kill their crops. So it provides higher crop yields. It reduces other pesticide uses that are more harmful than glyphosate. Glyphosate is actually considered less harmful than others. And then it reduces the tilling processes when you're farming. So there are a lot of positives for the glyphosate. However, the negatives of this, when you're using these glyphosate, you are creating a super weed population, so you have to use more glyphosate. So when you're looking at glyphosate causing possible different types of cancer, you're really looking at it at more of an agricultural, or people that are actually processing it or using it, not necessarily using it as weed killer in a resident capacity here in Beach Haven. So I'm kind of having a hard time with banning one specific chemical, which is used at the national level for our farmers,
when we're not using glyphosate on fields, we're not using it on grass, we're not using it on where there would be children running around. Glyphosate cannot go through your skin. You have to ingest it or inhale it. So I'm just having a really hard time with banning something when there's really not enough science out there for me to do that in a residential capacity. I think that if we do just ban one chemical, you're going to replace it with a more lethal chemical.
Can I say something? I've done a lot of research myself on this, and a lot of people are buying organic vegetables and that sort of thing. It's very, basically what you're saying about Monsanto is correct. But basically what happens, I'm not in favor of genetic engineering of plants either. But for years and years, I taught pathophysiology, and I taught a lot of cancer. And chemical carcinogenesis is cumulative and additive. So there's many things that contribute to chemical carcinogenesis, which is about 80% of cancers are really caused by chemical carcinogens versus biological, versus things like viruses, which can cause cancer, and genetics and that sort of thing. But it's when you look at carcinogenesis, these chemicals are additive, and basically it's a it takes lots of different chemicals, lots of different things to bring about the changes in the DNA in the cell. But they add up and they're cumulative, so you do not need just one thing. It's lots of things. So as we identify things that are potentially very harmful, if we can eliminate them and find something that isn't as harmful, basically we should lower the cumulative effect of carcinogenesis. And really, children are the most affected by this because their cells are dividing and developing at all times. So what you're really doing is you're protecting your kids. And kids, this stuff does cling to your shoes. It's on the gravel. It is used on grass. Basically, you're protecting your kids. You're keeping it from getting in your house, in your cars, and so
it's not
way ahead of us. Go ahead.
As far as grass, they use it on grass for like a golf course. We're not using it on the grass at Walsh Field. I mean, it's a non-selective herbicide, so it's going to if you put it on the grass, it's to kill the grass. Yeah. So it's not used on the grass here, and it's definitely. I mean, I'm going to make a statement. If it was getting into our bay, we wouldn't have algal blooms, we wouldn't have that sea lettuce, we wouldn't have that slime at all the end of the outfall pipes in the Bay Area. It would all be dead. All of the algae would be dead. So, and when you're spraying this glyphosate, it's a pretty interesting chemical. Is that it binds right to the clay particles in the soil and sticks there. So it's not necessarily on the rocks. It goes right into the plant, and it is stored. And I understand, the storing effect. I think that if we're going to do something like this, might be like Bruce suggested, maybe in a form of a resolution of, putting just the warning effects of this, of how, it can be on your shoes. So, I mean, I know that when they come out and spray the weeds, they'll have, a sign on there, don't walk on this, don't have your pets on it, it has a date on it. We could somehow, reiterate that. But I'm just nervous that there's so many other herbicides that are potentially worse than glyphosate. I mean, really worse. I talk to a lot of farmers where I work. I work in a farming community, and I mean, they were just giving me these names and what they have to wear in order to use these other types. And we would just have to keep making a list of them.
I mean, I can add to that too. I talked to a guy that he does this. He's in the weed killing profession, and he said, go ahead and ban this. He said, but what I'm going to use next
Right.
is much worse. He said the glyphosate's half-life is about 5 to 7 days, which means it's gone. I mean, to what he said, he has a friend, I guess he went through the school recently that takes care of golf clubs. He said when they want to change the golf club, the golf course, one of the holes, they spray glyphosate down and it eradicates whatever's there, grass or not. And then 7 days later, they can reseed and the seed grows. So it's not there anymore. He said, his words, my quote were, think about that. It's not there anymore. He said, the stuff that I'm going to use next will be there for 30 to 60 days, I think he said. So it won't be, it'll be a much worse situation. So it's, you go down the rabbit hole. So you ban that one, you ban the next one, you ban the next one, and, it eventually, I don't want to minimize the impact it has on children, but the next one is definitely going to be a much bigger problem. He said the only, if anybody tells you there's an organic solution, so the only organic solution is vinegar.
Yeah.
And, for him to say, it would put him out of business. So he's not going to go that route because it's just cost prohibitive. He said if the private resident wants to do that, that's fine. But as far as this goes, as Jamie was saying, if we just ban glyphosate, the next one's even worse. So it's kind of a slippery slope we start taking.
Well, I'll jump in real fast because, I thought I did some research, but apparently my research was lacking because I didn't come close to what everybody else did, especially Jamie.
No one ever comes close to it.
Yeah, really. But I kind of got a mixed message, truthfully. It's like, well, yeah, it's not the greatest thing, but it's not the worst thing. And my question all along, too, is, outside of a feel-good ordinance, like, how are you going to enforce this? That was my basic question, too. That's it.
Right, and everything's been talked about. My only concern is we put an ordinance together. Who's enforcing that and how are we enforcing that? And to me, we're putting a feel-good thing together, which, why do that? So why put a law in the books that we're really not going to enforce? It's just like what laws are meant to be broken? I don't know. So I don't like that process, personally.
Well, you can't, it's very hard to enforce an ordinance like that, but I would say that most people honor the law. A lot of people don't, but the majority of people do. And if you do have a law that says that you're not supposed to use this, I think most people will find an alternative. Also, you can enforce it when it comes to companies that are coming into town to spray. You can make sure that they're using some sort of organic solution, such as vinegar. There are options. You can also, not just say I'm banning, we're having an ordinance against this specific chemical. We can write the ordinance to include all the chemicals that are carcinogenic and damaging, and request that companies that are spraying in our town use organic methods of spray. Believe me, if you had an ordinance like that, they would find a way to use something that would work to kill weeds that wasn't endangering the health of our children. And I think it would be helpful to have more people come and talk about this. Obviously, there's pros and cons, but I just think this is, to me, it's a no-brainer. Why do we want to endanger our kids and ourselves? There's a lot of cancer in Beach Haven, believe it or not, a lot of cancer. And Ocean County is a hot spot for cancer. So I think we should take this very seriously. Anything we can do to discourage cancer-causing drugs should be done. And I agree with Mike Peeler. Maybe we should use his, let's bend over and pull the weed. That's what I've been doing all week. I've been bending over, pulling weed.
Nancy, I appreciate your passion, and I agree with mostly everything you're saying. It's just, I guess I would just need a little bit more guidance on this issue. The chemicals evaluated for carcinogenic potential, the annual cancer report of 2020 from the EPA had over 600 chemicals on there. So it's kind of difficult to contain it to just just one to just
Well, I
glyphosate.
agree with you. I think that the ordinance has to include more than just one. But have you read the book Tom Forever?
No, I have not.
Well, you should. I mean, really, there's cancer-causing agents that we don't even know are cancer-causing. There's foods we eat that have potential to cause cancer. But when we know specific ones that really do have a profound effect, I think we should try to limit them.
I do agree.
To me, it makes sense.
With the glyphosate, I think it's due to.
Well, I think we should try to wrap up this discussion.
Yeah.
Maybe I can hear from each of you if you want to, which path you choose. If we want to just do a resolution, do you want to just end the discussion? Do you want to move forward with an ordinance? As Bruce mentioned, that we could just do a resolution that just makes a statement about.
My problem with making any type of resolution is that it needs to be based off of I'm doing my own fact finding, I'm doing my own research, but I would rather have someone, Nancy, maybe from, the university to come in and give me, the statistics on this. I mean, I read the Environmental Protection Agency does not have glyphosate listed as a carcinogenic to humans. So, do we go with what our country is saying, or do we go with what the World Health Organization is saying? So, it's kind of difficult for me.
I understand that, and unfortunately, we've talked about this, Jamie, when we've talked about the DEP and how fickle they are. Well, many of our government agencies are fickle. They're very much influenced by business and so on. And I agree with you. We could find some people that are up to date in this research and are actually doing research in this, and have them come and talk to us. I'll ask around. I have a board of trustees meeting next week in Stockton. I'll be over there. I'll talk to the dean of the natural science and math department and ask him if he has anybody that can come and talk to us about this.
Yeah, it's difficult because there's no real risk assessment done. Like you said, there's no real data that says like this amount will cause cancer. There's nothing out there. There's just data of giving high amounts of chemicals to different animals in the lab, and then recording on the data there. So that's what's so difficult for me, is that like you said, it's really difficult to tie in that the human element there with the research.
Nancy, how about you, Jamie? Nancy, how about you and Jamie work together on this and see what recommendations you want to make to us? Okay. Sound okay, Jamie?
Yeah, that's great.
All right, we got to move on. We're all glazed over. Okay. We're going to number 4. Councilwoman Rutherford and I sat in with a meeting with the Southern Ocean County Chamber of Commerce about the Chowder Fest. Chris, I'm going to put you on the hot seat.
Great, thanks.
You want to talk about what we learned?
Yeah, so, they came to us, their concern is that last year, obviously, they didn't have a Chowder Fest, so, they're losing money, and they're looking for ways to make it a smaller event, but also something that really brings the Chowder Fest back to some way. They stated that it's never going to look like it did before. So their recommendation or their request is to make it a smaller event this year, have Chowder Month like they did last year, and have the participants, people go to the participating restaurants and eat the chowder and then vote. What they'd like to do is the October dates to kind of have a smaller venue where people would come and the Chowder Fest champion would be crowned. They would like to, create something like that with having small, what they say, like a marketplace and a chowder.
They were talking about not even using the grass field, just simply using the parking area that's toward Butler Park.
Right. And then also wanting to know if we would be willing to either rescind or renegotiate the current contract that we have with them from scratch, or take away some of the fees that we've set up for them to do every year. So that was their request from us, and so Sherry and I spent some time looking that over and what we could come up with, how much it would cost us. Sherry, right? And then we thought maybe, our proposal was to do this year and next, and then see how it goes, of not assessing them a fee, and then go back to the fee structure.
Did we assess the fee last year? Even though
No.
it wasn't?
There wasn't any.
No, in the contract, it says if they don't hold the event, then there are no fees. So last year, that's what happened, but they are intending on having something this year. It's just gonna be completely different than what they had in the past. So Chris and I looked at the figures, we looked at the past revenues, we looked at the contract that's in place now. And, we thought maybe what we should do is repeal the agreement that's in place. Maybe for this year, just have them apply just as if any other special event application would come in and have them pay the fees under the existing ordinance for special events.
Right.
They can also pay for the dumpsters. They asked us about help with dumpsters and garbage removal. We have a fee schedule set up for that. They can just utilize that. And then after this year, renegotiate the contract and let's really talk about what this event is going to become. They felt that the event will never be what it was in the past, that they almost felt that it was getting too much for them to handle.
Yeah.
So this is going to be kind of a rebirth of the Chowder Fest. And maybe we can talk about it, because if they aren't going to be using the grassy part of Taylor anymore, then we don't need to talk about field maintenance. So I think after this year, we can renegotiate and really talk about what exactly they want to be doing.
Right, so that'll give them the opportunity to try to have their event this year without having such the exorbitant fees that they felt they're having to pay because of just the way that they're set up. And they don't have big backers to back their fee structures. So they want to still be able to bring people here to town and give our businesses an ability to, participate in that. But then I think after this pandemic hopefully starts to slow down, 2022, they could start getting an idea of what they're going to look, how it will look for them. So. So that was what their recommendation was to us, or the request, and so Sherry and I came up with that thought process. So wanted to present that to you guys and see what you thought about that.
How many people are they expecting at their small event this year? Did they give you any indication?
Well, so they can only have, well, now it's changed again. Shoot, you think I should know?
500.
Was it 200?
500.
500.
Yeah.
So 500 people, where it used to be, 1,500 people?
Oh, more than that.
Oh, the biggest they've ever had was close to 15,000.
15,000 people. We park them.
Yeah, that's right.
Personally, I think that sounds like a very sound plan. Chowderfest has certainly always been a huge event for this town. Even as you said, the school makes money off of it, the businesses, and I would love to see them come back. I think it's interesting that they don't think they'll ever come back to the same magnitude because it's so hugely popular. I would kind of be surprised, but be that as it may, I think for now, this is a good, sound way to go forward.
I agree.
I agree. I just think it's going to be interesting because all indications are this summer is going to be extremely busy. People are looking for Chowder Fest to come back.
Yes.
So when they start advertising, hey, October, whatever date, we're going to have a little thing.
I think they even talked about not calling it that.
Right, they were looking at renaming it even, so.
Just trying to take it off the radar.
Right, a little bit, and then also, it's on them to kind of figure out how they manage that crowd control too, with limiting and what they're going to do, and they were working through that on their end, so.
That's going to be a hurdle. 15,000 people.
That is not mine,
Right. Yeah. Putting the toothpaste back in the tube, yeah.
So Bruce, if you could just help us pull together a resolution for the next meeting that would just scratch this agreement that's in place.
Yeah, because they would like a decision in early May so that they can start planning, because obviously they're already getting calls, they say multiple, about what's going on, so. All right, thanks.
Public comment?
All right, we are now going to open the floor to public comment. As usual, please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Raise your electronic hand or make yourself known. And please don't forget to state your name and address.
Wow.
Anybody? They left?
That's a good meeting.
Oh, George Salazar.
Hey folks, George Salazar here, Chief of Beach Haven Fire. I'm at 210 North Delaware Avenue. Just wanted to circle back and let everybody know where we stand with the ordinance for the fire company. I've been speaking frequently with Mr. Padula, and we are working together to find an amicable solution for everybody. It's been going very, very well. So I appreciate his guidance and his cooperation, and we're very hopeful that we can come up with a solution for everybody on that. The other thing I wanted to mention was just with the fireworks, something to keep in the back of your mind. Any fireworks display that we've had in Beach Haven has had fire companies stand by just because of the wind and the potential for any kind of fire damage. So if that is something that the borough is looking into, I would of course respectfully request that we be involved in whatever decision-making process that entails.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, George. Emergency management said festivals are at 1,000 right now.
1,000?
Capacity.
Oh.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Is there anybody else?
I don't see anyone else.
No? Seeing as there is no one else, then we'll close the floor to public comment.
Thank you. I have Resolution 108, 2021, authorizing an executive session to discuss contract negotiations, affordable housing. I anticipate the mayor and council to be in the executive session approximately 1 hour, and no formal action will be taken during the closed session.
Or after.
Or after. Yeah, we will reconvene just for final remarks of council on the adjournment, so. Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so I think the best way to handle the closed session is in the side room. So we'll mask up and go that way.
Are you bringing Nancy?
Yeah.
Do you want me to do this to get on here? Is everybody leaving and I'm staying on, or what?
One of us will call you from the room, okay, so you can hang up.
You want to just call me and I'll leave the meeting? That's fine?
Yeah. Yes, hang up.
Okay, I'll leave you.
Thank you. Ever been back here, guys? Chris, have you ever been in here? Oh, that's right, that's right. It's a secret hallway.
Sorry.
No, you're fine, you're fine. I know it's gonna lock behind me, so. John Halpern, can you hear us? Let's try that now.
We're this close.
John Halpern, can you hear us?
No.
No.
My sister-in-law just said she hears us.
Oh, good.
Maybe it's John's computer
Hear
then.
us. Okay, if she can hear us then, we're going to reconvene this public meeting at 6:17. All right, and it's public, final remarks by council.
Okay, Dan, as always, you want to kick us off?
Sure, why not? I think I enjoyed the discussion today. It's nice to talk to each other and be in the meeting with everybody. That's everything for me. I think everybody gets outside and has some fun.
Jamie?
Just, from what Dan said, it was, I really, truly enjoy being in the presence of actual people and not looking at a screen as, as the kids are, back in school as well. It's so great to teach face to face. It's also great to have just something about looking someone in the eye and having this general conversation that just means so much. And there will be, hopefully in the near future, where the public can come in again as well. So this was a great meeting. It was a great discussion. And I just wanted to remind everyone, there was only a few people, but please spread the word that the Beach Haven Elementary School is having their craft fair with vendors, and that's this Saturday, May 1st, from 9 to 3. So they will be, they had one in the fall as well, and you probably see a lot of vendors that you've seen at other different craft shows. So please come out and support the school. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Hey, Nancy?
Nancy, you're up.
Sorry, I couldn't hear anybody via the phone. I just want to say it's exciting that we're back. I'm sorry I'm not there, but the rest of you are back in person. And I guess that means things are going to open up, and it was a good meeting, and thank you. And I hope I'll be there in person the next meeting. Thank you.
Hey, Chris?
I also enjoy having dialogue with other people, so this has been fun for me to be able to talk and feel more comfortable in this setting. Just one thing I wanted to state on that resolution 2021-15C for the CAFRA applicability and the site plan approval. I think Mayor and everyone working on that, I think that's something that's come out of some lessons learned, a big lessons learned fan if you've not noticed, on how we can improve things for town. So hopefully we'll continue to see things like that happening when we come to situations that are challenging, but we move forward and figure it out. So thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. That just leaves me. And again, it is very nice to be in here in the big house after sitting on the other side of the dais for so long. Nothing really. I just want to make mention of the fact that the Compassion Cafe, a very special and unique new business, is coming to Beach Haven. And their grand opening is going to be on Monday, May 17th at 9:30. So please try to be there if you can. They do have a soft opening the week before, but I'm not sure how many people they want there right now. And the junior mates have invited all the council to a session on June, I think it's 20, I'll have to get back on that, to award the proclamation officially, because we did it, from my living room, and not quite the same. So that's all I have. Thank you all very much. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second. All right.
Stand adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Have a great night.